Welcome to Addicted to Watches. Today, we will be taking a look at a watch I had to wait a long time to buy, but not because of any waitlist like you see with Rolex. This is just a tough watch to find now, especially in brand new condition. This is Tudor's answer to the Rolex day date, the Tudor Prince Date Day. These days, the brand Tudor is known most for its Black Bay range of watches, including the original 58 dive watch, 36 and 41 everyday watch, and their chronograph. As a brand, it has always existed as a more affordable alternative to Rolex, being owned by the same parent entity, the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation. Whilst it still is that today, it is in a much less direct way, as it offers more original and separated designs from Rolex. In the past, however, it was much less subtle, and some models, like the Submariner and this day-date homage, were more direct copies. This particular watch, the Prince Date Day, is a watch that was originally made for the Asian market and is now discontinued, making an already uncommon and largely unknown model even more elusive. I first came across this watch about 5 years ago on the website of a Japanese watch store. On a trip to Japan about 3 years ago, I visited the store with the intent to try it on, but it was nowhere in sight, so I left empty-handed. It wasn't until about 6 months ago that I saw another one for sale in brand new condition. With only one in stock across the whole of Japan, I ordered it lest I regret not buying it once again. Pinning down an official RRP for these watches is pretty difficult, but they seemed to range between $2,000 and $2,500 US. The thing you will notice about this watch, however, is that it bears a much more striking resemblance to more vintage Rolex rather than modern. It is a double-edged sword, as we'll see later, but overall it's a positive for me. It feels much classier and less in your face than modern Rolex watches. Being brand new, it doesn't have any of the concerns of a vintage watch, such as issues with the movement or difficulty finding replacement parts. Aside from the color and material differences, there were two main variations of the Prince Date Day, those being with a smooth bezel, like the one I have here, and a fluted bezel. The fluted bezel models used 18-karat gold in parts of their construction, whereas the smooth bezel watches are all stainless steel. Some highlights of the variations include the linen dials, which are used increasingly less in modern watches, as well as California dials, which are quite visually interesting. There is not a great deal of information regarding these watches online, but it is generally believed that the movement powering the watch is a high-grade ETA movement, which has, in my experience, been running very accurately. The most identifiable feature of the design is the prominent day indicator at the top of the dial. For many, this design choice is pretty polarizing, but personally I really like it. Unlike many horizontal day indicators, the full day is written and there is only one language on the day disc. As you can see also, the date indicator is magnified by a cyclops on the crystal. Taking a look at the dial as a whole, it is relatively simple, which is what you would expect for a day-date homage. Batten indices are applied, and a simple minute track is also printed around the perimeter of the dial. Just outside the hour markers are some small dots of lume. This is not strictly a sport watch or a dress watch, but rather walks the border between, so some lume is expected, but nothing too substantial, which is exactly what you get here. It's not something I would rely on for after-dark legibility. The Tudor shield is also applied, while the brand, model name, and rotor self-winding are printed. While there is probably a little more text on the dial than I would like, it is quite small in size, and the typeface used is also quite fine, making it unobtrusive. The dial itself is a very rich and deep blue color, which I think is made from enamel. It has a glossy finish, which further enhances the richness of the blue. The stock photos do not do it justice, and I was pleasantly surprised when I received it. Fairly standard batten hands are used, and, like the dial, the lume is average at best. As mentioned, there is a cyclops on the dial that magnifies the date, making it much easier to read. It does quite a good job magnifying it, and I'd say it's somewhere between 1.5 and 2 times magnification. It's not as dramatic as the magnification of a Rolex Cyclops, but I prefer this one. The crystal itself is made of scratch-resistant sapphire, and from what I can see, does not have any kind of anti-reflective coating on either the top or underside. Looking side on, we can see that the crystal itself is a box crystal, protruding from the bezel and case. This is a really nice feature that also helps to slim down the profile of the case. The case of this watch is a classic oyster shape designed by Rolex. In the early days of Tudor, the cases, as well as other components, were actually manufactured by Rolex themselves, but I don't think that is the case for this one. When this model began production in the 80s, the crown and clasp did bear the Rolex logo, so were most likely made by them, but later models in this line were branded completely by Tudor. The case measures 36 mm across, with a height of just over 10 mm. Lug to lug, this watch measures a very compact 43 mm, and the lug width is a standard 20 mm. By modern standards, it is definitely considered a small watch, but considering the vintage style it is mimicking, the size feels very appropriate and makes it comfortable to wear. The smooth bezel is polished, contrasting nicely with the flat, brushed top surface of the case. The transition from the brushed top to the polished side of the case is sharp, and the slight roundness to the sides ensures comfort on wrist. Jeweled lugs also make strap changes easy too. From the side, we can also see that the crown is signed with the Tudor logo. It screws down just like the case back to provide 100 meters of water resistance. This level is perfect for an everyday watch, and anything more would be overkill, as well as make the case much bulkier. The case back, like the rest of the watch, closely resembles those of Rolex watches, though instead of being completely devoid of markings, it has the brand logo and some text lightly engraved. As you can see, I haven't been able to bring myself to pull the sticker off the back of this one just yet. One less obvious feature of this watch, which has been absent from the many Japanese movements we've looked at on the channel before, is the date change. For anyone who has owned a Seiko or similar watch, you'll have noticed that from about 11 p.m, the day and date will start to turn over gradually before finally changing after about 2 hours. This ETA movement changes the day and date instantly at 12 o'clock. A small detail, but something to be appreciated. If we now move on to the bracelet, we can see more of the vintage style here. The links themselves are much slimmer than modern ones. I really like this, as it too adds to the comfort when wearing the watch. While not the same, the link arrangement is similar to the Rolex Jubilee style, and has 3 polished inner parts to the link, surrounded by a brushed piece on each side. Each link is held together by screws, which are easy to remove when sizing, but still feel very secure. As it leaves the case, it tapers from 20 to 16 mm, which balances the case size well. As I mentioned at the beginning, the vintage style is a bit of a double-edged sword. A couple of remnants of the past can be found in this bracelet, including hollow end links and a pressed clasp. I don't really see any logical reason they could not have upgraded the end links of the bracelet to solid. Although I will say the hollow ones it has do not rattle at all and fit the case perfectly. The decision to use a pressed clasp is one that I can understand to an extent. The bracelet itself is quite thin, and by using a pressed clasp, they avoided any unnecessary bulk. A big, chunky clasp would have looked out of place on this watch. Fortunately, the clasp also offers 6 different positions of micro-adjustment to ensure you get a perfect fit. Now, let's get it on wrist and see how it wears. As I've been saying throughout this video, it's really comfortable due to the size, weight, and shape. Even on my 7-inch wrist, I don't think it's too small and really like how it wears. The lugs do downturn slightly, helping it to hug my wrist even more, although with a slim height and very short lug to lug, it doesn't need it. I think it's pretty clear by now that I really like this watch. I had to wait a long time to finally get one, but it was worth the wait. Even the price is quite reasonable when comparing it to its Rolex big brother. coming in at many multiples higher. Overall, I don't regret the slightly impulsive purchase I made when I had the chance, but there are a couple of things I would change if I could. I mentioned two of them when talking about the bracelet, those being the hollow end links and pressed clasp. There are two other issues I have with this watch, another being that the lug width is 20mm, and although it's a very common size and most people have spare straps, proportionally, I think 18mm would have looked much better. On the bracelet it looks okay because, as you can see, the first link already starts to taper dramatically. Putting the watch on any other kind of strap that doesn't taper, or only tapers slightly, looks odd. It makes the head of the watch look very undersized, or the strap looks too wide. This is unfortunate because the blue dial looks great on brown leather straps. As you can see here, it just doesn't look right on or off the wrist. Luckily, I tend to prefer wearing my watches on a bracelet, so it's not as much of an issue for me, but it would be something to consider if you are looking at one of these watches. The other issue I have with this watch is not so much with the watch itself, but the availability. I think the Tudor Day-Date collection is great, and would love to get my hands on one of the linen dials, or one with a fluted bezel, but being out of production now, as well as only being made for the Asian market, means they are harder to come by for reasonable prices. I can understand why they stopped making this particular watch, as Tudor changed direction slightly, looking to form their own brand identity, not just as a cheaper version of a Rolex. At the end of the day, wearing this watch always puts a smile on my face, and I'm just really glad I was able to buy what may be one of the last brand new in-box examples of this watch. It's a classy, understated watch that can be worn across a wide range of settings. What do you think about this watch? Is it no better than any other Rolex homage out there? Have you got one like this, or an older Tudor watch? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.